Hello and welcome to lesson 77 of the Learning Guitar series. In this particular lesson we're going to look at triads and a methodology to derive the inversions all across the neck of the guitar. Let's delve straight into it and let's look at the PDF that comes with this lesson. So the best way to understand triadic inversions and to develop fretboard knowledge is to approach these studies utilizing the parental form concept as discussed by Martino. This is a concept which we have already used when discussing extended triad inversions in previous lessons. In those studies, we took the diminished chord, which is 1 flat 3, flat 5, double flat 7, and used it as a starting point to derive major 7, minor 7, dominant 7 off diminished chord and relative inversions. In this case, we will be using the augmented triad 1, 3, sharp 5 as point of origin, and from it we will derive major, minor, and diminished triads across the fretboard. Why the augmented triads? Well, because, like the diminished chord, the augmented triads has a symmetrical quality that, in particular on the guitar, translates into identical finger patterns when executing the chord and its two inversions. What does that mean? I mean, like the one simple augmented triad using string group, maybe 1, 2, and 3, is, for example, this. Now, the inversion, the first inversion of this particular shape is literally 2 tone up from the original position, and then again 2 tone up, and then we're back to square one. So in that sense, these positions are symmetrical. I can think of this as the triad in root position, first inversion, second inversion. And as you notice, the fingerings, literally like the way we shape the chord itself, doesn't change it. That makes it a good starting point to derive all the rest of the triads, as you will see in a second. As you can see in the diagram below, triad, in this case developed over string group 1, 2, and 3, and its two inversions, are 2 tones away from each other and move symmetrically over the neck of the guitar while retaining an identical pattern in terms of chord shape. And this is what I just showed you in the video. Consider this, so in root position, by root position I mean the lowest note of the triad is the actual root. Here we have a third in the bass, and hence this is the first inversion. Here we have the sharp 5 in the bass, here is hence the second inversion. So what you see above is, for example, a B augmented, because we are at fret 4 in root position, a B augmented first inversion, here is fret 8, hence the third is in the bass, and a B augmented second inversion with a sharp 5 in the bass. Once again, notice how fingering-wise the chord shapes look pretty exactly the same. Another thing that needs to be pointed out is how the augmented triad can actually take 3 names as it can represent 3 keys. In the example above, B augmented in root position is actually the same as G augmented first inversion and E flat augmented second inversion. To make the concept even easier to digest, simply remember that any of the 3 notes of the augmented triad can actually be its root note, as it would not change, as seen in the diagram below, and the relation of the root note with the other notes, which will remain third and sharp 5 no matter what. So what that means here as I have my augmented triad, B, E flat, G, and if I think of B as the root note, automatically E flat becomes the third and G becomes the sharp 5. That's the intervallic relations in between these 3 notes, and that's why I'm calling it the B augmented. But same finger pattern, same fret, literally same chord, if I think of E flat as the root note. As you can see now, G becomes the third and B becomes the sharp 5. And the same chord in the same fret can be a B augmented, but it can also be an E flat augmented. And as you can see now, if I put G in the root note, still I have 3 and sharp 5. So this is, again, is an augmented triad. In this case, a G augmented. That's an important concept because what that also means is that we can develop triadic inversions for all 12 diatonic keys on the guitar neck within the space of 5 frets, and this is an important concept as it allows us to negotiate chord progression utilizing a more pianistic approach in how we use chords and develop voice leading. Well, what that means is, if we just demonstrated that this, for example, can cover three different keys. This can be B augmented, this can be E flat augmented, this can be G augmented. They are exactly the same note. But if this is three keys, it means, okay, this is the key of F sharp, the key of B flat, and the key of D. So that's three keys, 6, 9, 12. So in between the F, in this case, in between F sharp, so fret 2 and fret 6, so in the space of 5 frets, I can cover all 12 keys. And if I can cover all 12 keys, it doesn't mean that I can only cover 12 keys with triads, like augmented triads. It means that in time, I can cover, as we develop these studies, I can cover any single triads, major, minor, diminished, and augmented, in 12 keys, which means that no matter what chord progression we're playing, we don't have to go up and down the neck just because we don't know a chord shape around, the area where we're working. And of course, after, say, if this is F sharp, I'm going to start from F sharp. I have F sharp augmented, which is the same as B flat augmented, which is the same as D augmented. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now, of course, as we pointed out before, we are two-tone up. And that's the first inversion of the F sharp. In fact, now F sharp is here, B flat is here, and D is here. So in the space of between fret 2 and 6, I've already covered all 12 keys, and now in between, 6 and 10, I'm going to cover another 12 keys, right? 3 inversion. The next diagram below shows you how the 12 keys are covered within 5 frets, no matter where on the guitar neck. So the red one represents a block of 12 keys. Now the blue ones is the following inversion, again 12 keys, and then the yellow one following inversion 12 keys. And obviously here I'm at fret 2, and here I'm at fret 14, and it will repeat itself. Now the question is, how do we develop major, minor, and diminished triad and relative inversion starting from augmented triads? This is where the concept of parental form comes in. From an augmented triad, we can derive major triads and their inversions by lowering the sharp 5. In the example below, we're taking a B augmented, and by lowering the 5th, obtain B major triad. And this concept is very simple. So here, again, I have my augmented triads, 2 inversions, and I'm taking the sharp 5 and lowering it to a 5th. Taking the sharp 5, lowering it to a 5th. Taking the sharp 5, lowering to a 5th. And now I have a major triad. This is B major in this case, in root position. B, first inversion, so the 3rd is in the bass, and B, second inversions. Here is the 5th is in the bass. And in terms of exercising this, you might want to simply go from one to the other. Just move up and down and get comfortable with these 3 finger patterns in a way. As a matter of fact, if you remember these 3 finger patterns, these are all going to be for this string group, the only 3 finger patterns. Let me give you an example of what I mean. We started from B augmented, and in the case of B augmented, this is 1, 3, sharp 5. We lowered the 5th, so here is our B major triad. Same thing we did here. We lower the 5th, and we have the major. And the same we did here. We lower the 5th, and we have the B major triad. But as we said, an augmented triad can have 3 keys. So let's go back to our augmented triad. In this case, maybe let's not take B as the root note. Let's think of G as the root note. Okay, in that case, I have 1, 3, sharp 5. So this, in this position, this would be a G augmented triad first inversion, because the 3rd is the lowest pitched note. Okay, if this is a sharp 5 and I lower it, okay, this is a G major triad. Same thing. So now I have, again, G, but I have sharp 5 in the bass. If I lower it, I have G, major triad. Same thing here. Here is in the root position, as this is G, this is the 3rd and the sharp 5. So as you can see, the finger pattern, before I played B, I played to this, and now I'm in G. I'm playing exactly the same finger pattern. It's just this is in the root position. This is first inversion, second inversion when it comes to G. You could do it. And, you know, we're back to. So, the first thing you want to do in terms of getting comfortable with these things is literally go from one to another. I mean, just to get the finger pattern going. So, as we know by now, B augmented is equal to G augmented and E flat augmented. Hence, let's see what happens if we change the root notes to G and E flat and then lower the sharp 5 in order to derive major triad and relative inversions. So now is the example I just gave you on the guitar from G. From G augmented, we got G major. Same thing if we start from E flat in the bass. So it would be this with a sharp 5 would be the second inversion, root position, first inversions, and of course now we have E flat major triad by lowering the sharp 5 to a fifth. Continuing on the parental form concept, now we can take the resulting major triad, and by lowering the third, hence the major third to a minor third, obtain the minor triad and relative inversions. The examples below are once again in B, G, and E flat. So here is the B major that we just derived, first inversion and second inversion. And if I lower the third, I have the B minor triad. So the third becomes flat 3, the third becomes flat 3. And again, that's quite a simple concept, but I'll keep repeating it so you get the logic of it, and also why it's called parental forms. In a way, when these are not, but Martino didn't invent the concept, but this idea of calling a parental form like you have some sort of granddad, which is your augmented triad, which as a kid, by lowering the sharp 5, and now we have the major triads. And now, so the grandfather had a kid by lowering the flat 3. So the major 3 to a flat 3, and now we have B minor, B minor, B minor, B minor root position, B minor first inversion, B minor second inversion. So we started from B augmented, then we derive the major, and from the major we derive the minor triads and above the inversions. And in the PDF, once again, I go through also like, this is from B major going to B minor, but also from G major going to G minor, and then from E flat major going to E flat minor, so that you see how, of course, the finger shapes are going to be the same, just in different positions. Last but not least, now we can take the resulting minor triads, and by lowering the fifth again, whence obtaining the flat 5, derive the diminished triads and relative inversions. The example below, once again, are in B, G, and E flat. So I have from by B minor, first inversion, second inversion. I can lower the fifth, and I have the diminished. So B diminished, first inversion, second inversion. And of course, also the G minor, G flat, the G from G minor to G diminished, and then from E flat minor to E flat diminished. So let's look on the guitar. I had the B minor, 1 flat 3 5. By lowering the fifth, we have B diminished triad. Here is the triad. Last but not least. So now I have these concepts here. B diminished in root position, B diminished first inversion, B diminished second inversion. And this concept can be applied anywhere. I could start randomly. Let's take an augmented triad. This, okay. This augmented triad can be D augmented triad if I think of this as the root note. It can be F sharp augmented triad if I think of this as the root note. And it can be B flat augmented triad if I think of this as the root note. Okay? Let's use B flat as the root note. So now I have 1. And from a B flat perspective, this interval is a third, and this is a sharp 5. So from the augmented, if I lower the sharp 5 to a fifth, I get B flat major triad. Now I have 1, 3, and 5. If I lower the third, I get the minor triad. So now I have B flat minor. And if I lower the fifth again, which is here, I obtain the diminished. So here is the 4 triads that we have: major, minor, augmented, and diminished. Started from augmented. And we started from the first inversion of B flat, because we thought, okay, B flat is here, this is my third, so this is the first inversion. If I bring it to a second inversion, so now I have B flat is here, this is the sharp 5, and this is the third. If I lower the sharp 5, here is major. If I lower the third, here is minor. If I lower the fifth again, it is diminished. Again, let's in root position, because now this is B flat, root note, third, sharp 5. Sharp 5, lower it, I get a fifth, so this is a major triad. If I lower the third, B flat minor triad. If I lower the fifth again, here I have a diminished. At this stage, we're still just practicing string 1, 2, and 3 as in string group, just to get to get accustomed to it. One good thing you can do already at this stage is decide an area of the neck. For example, like let's use this one, and let's say I want to play a chord progression with literally 2 chords, maybe I don't know, G and B. Actually, let's do G major and B major. So by now I know that this is G major, first inversion. And for B major, okay, root position. Now, if I move on this area of the neck, I have G major, B major. And if I move to this area of the neck, I have G major, B major. We can execute all 12 keys, major, minor, off, diminished, augmented, staying within 5 frets. Actually, let's do the 3 keys that we derive from this. Let's go G major, B major, E flat major, just in this area. So, of course, if it was just augmented, this is B augmented, G augmented, and E flat augmented. But the moment we transform them into major chords, major triads, so here I have G major, B major, E flat major. Then I can bounce back and forth. If I move to the next area, I have, for example, G major here. And this will be like second inversion. Here is the G note, here is the fifth. B, first inversion. And then I have E flat, root position. If I move again up, I have G, root position, B, second inversion, E flat, first inversion. So in other words, I can resolve any chord progression, major, but we can mix and match with major and minor if we want, even now. So let's go, I don't know, G major, B minor, maybe E flat major. So I have G major, B minor, E flat major. And that's a nice sounding progression. G major, B minor, E flat major. Next inversion, so G major, B minor, E flat major. So you can literally devise some random chord progressions, and then by using inversions, trying to resolve the entire chord progression in one area of the neck using the same string group. In this case, just string group 1, 2, and 3. So by now you probably understand why calling this concept parental form is kind of an inspired one, as it makes not only understanding triad inversion easier, is to make them easier to digest, but also logical to derive on the guitar neck. Just to recap, we can take an augmented triad and its two inversions, and by lowering the fifth from a sharp 5 to a natural 5, obtain major triads and relative inversion. From a major triads, we obtain minor triads and relative inversions by lowering the third. The major third becomes a minor third. And finally, we derive diminished triads and relative inversions by taking minor triads and lowering the fifth to a flat 5. The following graphical example explains you these passages. And here is the same concept, but using B augmented, going to B major, B minor, B diminished, using net diagrams. Just a couple of more concepts before we move to the next session of this studies. When the lowest note of the triad in terms of pitch is the root note, we call that triad in root position. I'm just reiterating this so you don't forget. When the lowest note of the triad is the third, we call it the first inversion, and when it's the fifth, is the second inversion. When writing a chord chart, we use slash chords when we want to indicate the use of a particular inversion. For example, G/B, so G over B indicates a G major triad, first inversion, because B is the third of G. For example, G minor/D indicates a minor triad, second inversion. So D is in the bass because it's the fifth. Last but not least, when we think triads, we can think of them as three notes played simultaneously, in which case we're thinking of them as chords. And as such, we can expand these studies further, as we will, into voice leading concept, chord voicing, /chord studies, chord substitution, etc. At the same time, we can also think of triads as single notes arpeggios, and that opens the door to further concepts, which once again we will tackle in the future. So you can see there is a lot to unpack here, and parental form studies are a very important building block, which we cannot underestimate. Now, what that means, this last concept, is at the moment we're looking at triads as a group of three notes played simultaneously and a chord. So we're looking at it like this. But of course, we can think of triads as arpeggio, so something that we use during our soloing, for example. And say if we take the progression we played before, so G, B, E flat, let's do them all major, even just by using these notes here. That's G. That's B major. E flat. So of course now at the moment I'm limiting myself to using, just the things we looked at in a way. But in the future we will look at triads also as arpeggio devices, and from that we can look into, say, triadic pairs, theories, etc., etc., etc. Well, I hope you enjoyed the lesson. I hope kind of explains it, triads and their inversions on a theoretical level, and you can start practicing it in terms of moving from one to the other. But in the next part, we're going to look at several more string groups. So there's going to be, the practical side, the more practical side of these studies. Perfect. It's been a pleasure, and enjoy playing. Thank you. Bye.